Hey everyone and welcome. In this episode we'll be breaking down an early laning phase from no other than G2's Zven, one of the world's best AD carries. This game is from the Korean bootcamp prior to Worlds. Before we jump into figuring out our game plan, let's see how your bot lane mastery stacks up. Say you were playing JINX in this matchup. How would you play it? Specifically, what would your goals be in the early laning phase? Now, this definitely isn't an easy question to answer in 5 seconds. It's pretty much impossible. But it's one that you'll be able to answer in time if you stick to the program. Watch enough of these dailies and you'll become the expert and be able to understand any matchup in the bot lane. Speaking of the matchup, JINX has a range advantage over Xayah while in rocket form, and Xayah wins in damage whenever she uses her QWE combo. In terms of wave clear, JINX has the level 1 advantage from rocket form's AoE. For the supports, Tahm Kench's Q harass gives him the range advantage over Alistar. Alistar is usually useless at level 1 because he has no range or reliable engage, and that really isn't any different here. Level 2 and onwards though, when Alistar does have engage, this matchup is fairly even and will come down to who plays it better. As the JINX player, we will want to do these following things to win. First, push the wave at level 1. She'll do this with her slight wave clear advantage, but also heavy matchup advantage before level 2. Xayah shouldn't be able to contest an early push. Then, we'll harass with a range advantage. With her rockets, JINX should be able to land harass while pushing. She can get especially aggressive at level 1 since Alistar has no engage threat. Then, we'll want to play around our supports. You really always want to play around your supports regardless of your matchup, however, today it's even more important. JINX wants to position close enough to Kench to get eaten if Alistar engages, but not close enough so that both of them get knocked up. We'll explain this in full when it happens. As we jump into the game, JINX and Tahm walk into the lane, and their jungler starts Raptors so that they don't need to leash. Remember, they have the upper hand at level 1, so they really want to abuse that before level 2. With that in mind, it's time to start on the first 2 missions. In the next few seconds of gameplay, try to identify what is so masterful about Zven's target selection and positioning while harassing. As we back it up, to the untrained eye, this may have seemed just like standard aggression from JINX. However, Zven's execution is what we really want to learn from it. First, Zven hits the creeps right when he gets into the lane, starting to begin the push. Kench then kills the first melee with Targons, so that JINX has no CS to focus on. Xayah, however, is going for this last hit. JINX auto-attacks Alistar, then activates rocket form for the range advantage to hit Xayah as she goes for the last hit. She then pulls back immediately and focuses on the Alistar, not the Xayah, because she's getting free damage on Alistar out of Xayah's range. This is an ideal start. The JINX lane is stronger at level 1, so getting aggressive is essential to getting a lead before the lane matchup becomes even at level 2. Really, it's the little things that can translate into big advantages. With this aggressive stance that JINX has taken early on by understanding the matchup, she's gained lane priority. She's pushing the lane, chunked out Alistar, and now Xayah eats a Q from the Kench. This lane, as with any other Alistar lane, is essentially a 1v2 at level 1. JINX does a great job and instantly uses a rocket to follow up on the Kench Q, and then things are going great. With the lane pushed all of the way to the turret, we can pretty much call this a free harassment zone. This is pretty much a dream scenario against an Alistar at level 1. Now it's time to work on mission 2. Consider this a zero risk, only reward zone, since Alistar can't really do anything about JINX being pushed up this far at level 1. So, JINX goes for a pretty good rocket that hits both of them, and then 2 more as Xayah goes for last hits. Suddenly, this matchup isn't even at all, because JINX got so much work done at level 1. This is a clear reward that you'll be able to capitalize on in your own games over time with our system, understanding the matchups and making the most out of your windows of strength. Alright, so this is all well and good, having such a great health lead, but most of us have been here before and have then gotten ganked. So, isn't this something we should be worried about? JINX is pushing the waves super far up into the lane. It's completely fine to push the first 2 waves of the game if you're playing to a matchup advantage. When it comes down to it, you're unlikely to be ganked so early on. However, it's important to crash the second wave into the turret before the first cannon wave arrives. This gives you enough time to bounce the wave back towards you and be safe from ganks. As we move on, we can see Zven push the second wave into the enemy turret. He's really patient here because he wants to take his time and assure he gets every last hit. Whenever you have this sort of matchup advantage, playing like this will get you the biggest possible lead. Now at this point in time, things begin to change. Take a moment to think to yourself, as the JINX player, what should you be thinking about at this very moment? So she should be paying way more respect to the Alistar. Alistar is now level 2, which means that the enemy duo has options, especially if you're so close to the turret. This is no longer a no risk, only reward scenario. JINX can still apply some harass while max ranging safely, but if you play a lower range AD carry, then the fun generally ends here under the turret. So moving on for the next minute or so, we can see that JINX is still shoving the waves, but playing much further back. Kench also moves into the river and applies vision. With the advantage that JINX has gained from level 1, she's able to constantly shove waves and play safe for the next couple of levels, which is totally fine. JINX is happy to scale and is primarily focusing on shoving the wave from a safe distance. We're now going to fast forward to about 355, where we can see the enemy jungler Ezreal on the bot side. With the information that you have on the screen, if you were the JINX, what would you do in this situation? Knowing that Ezreal is on bot side, the answer would be to play a little bit more passive and just stop pushing the wave until he leaves bot side. However, since Rek'Sai is also bot side and basically mirroring Ezreal's camps, the correct answer is to actually keep playing aggressive. If Ezreal tries to gank, JINX will receive support from her jungler as well, which they're likely to win because of the poke damage JINX has already landed on the opposing duo. Now, this is solo queue, and that may leave you feeling a bit skeptical about relying on your own jungle support, since we've all been let down by our own jungler. You want to ping them and give them a pretty good heads up on what's going on. The reason why jungle support is so reliable in this case is because Rek'Sai only has one camp bot side, which is closest to the bot lane. JINX pushes the wave and knows for sure that Ezreal is coming. She backs off and pings for assistance. Rek'Sai is now on his way, but the enemy jungler is closer. Let's focus up on how Mission 3 is applied here from Zven on the JINX. This right here is perfect. Check out the distance between Kench and JINX. They can't get double knocked up by Alistar's combo, and Kench is close enough to eat JINX almost immediately. With Alistar's threat pretty much gone, he overextends and pays the price. Understanding what your opponent's primary threat is and how you can play around it with your support ahead of time allows you to calmly execute plays like this. Moving on, Rek'Sai makes a return gank onto the Ezreal and Xayah. Let's take a look. So, when all was said and done, Zven was the last man standing and resets the wave and backs. Let's get you to today's takeaways. As Zven went into the matchup, he identified that his strongest point was at level 1. With superior wave clear and range, he bullied Xayah and Alistar enough to free push the first two waves. He played carefully around Alistar's level 2 and used his existing advantage and solid range to free farm for several minutes. He identified an incoming gank, called his jungler, and ended up coming out on top. Zven showed that in even more dangerous matchups, you can get big leads off of small points in time. In your own games, try and identify where your strongest stage of the lane is. Even in matchups where you're even or weaker on average, there will often be windows of strength that you can abuse. For Zven, he identified the window and made the most of it. He understood that his window closed as Alistar hit level 2. He then rode off the advantage he generated while he was strong, and all throughout he played around his support flawlessly. That's it for this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check out Monday's Daily. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, please let us know in the comment section below. See you next time!